Hey everyone, this is Jonathan McCormack. I'm an attachment specialist here in New York. You can find me at attachmenthealinghelp.com. And I just want to talk about poetry and attachment styles. One of the main things that people need for secure attachment is attunement, being seen and being known. But oftentimes this is difficult. So people turn to the arts. And the arts, especially poetry, can kind of give us words and bring out those emotions that were kind of nebulous but are given form in poetry. So just a couple poems I thought really kind of hit on what the attachment styles were. So the first poet was Jack Gilbert, one of my favorites. The guy popped up around the 60s and then disappeared for like 20 years. Traveled, ended up on a farm in New York, but he never had long-lasting relationships. He didn't think that was a problem, though. He didn't think that was a failure at all. So listen to this poem, Failing and Flying by Jack Gilbert. Everyone forgets that Icarus also flew. It's the same when love comes to an end or the marriage fails. And people say, they knew it was a mistake, that everybody said it would never work, that she was old enough to know better. But anything worth doing is worth doing badly, like being there by that summer ocean, on the other side of the island while love was fading out of her, the stars burning so extravagantly, those nights that anyone could tell you they would never last. Every morning she was asleep in my bed, like a visitation, the gentleness in her like an antelope standing in the dawn mist. Each afternoon I watched her coming back through the hot stony field after swimming, the sea light behind her and the huge sky on the other side of that. Listened to her while we ate lunch. How can they say the marriage failed? Like the people who came back from Province when it was Province and said it was pretty, but the food was greasy. I believe Icarus was not failing as he fell, but just coming to the end of his triumph. I like this poem. He's talking about Icarus, the myth, the guy who makes wings of wax and he's going to fly near the sun, and he gets really close. And then his wings melt and he drops into the ocean. And people say, oh, see, you don't want to fly too high. That's a failure. But that's not how Jack Gilbert sees it. He sees that it's a success even if it doesn't last. Just another brief poem is, this one's really short. He just says, every wise man I met in Asia warned me against caring. Explained how everything I loved would get old or be taken away, and I would suffer. I tried to explain what a bargain it is. His point is that it's not a failure. Some people have this idea that this is what a successful relationship is. It lasts forever. And people get really stuck on that. I found people are frozen and they never move on from that. It's only successful if the relationship only lasted 2 years. That means it was a failure. But how can that be a failure? If there was a connection, that connection was authentic. There are moments in that relationship where you were connected. You were connected. That connection happens at the present. Everyone has a definition of what a relationship is, but connection is immediate, and that is authentic. I know a lot of people who dated and got married, and are still married and been married for 20, 30 years. I can tell you, I don't consider that a successful relationship. There's some of these people, and neither would they. They tell me, like, well, they're miserable. They can't wait to get out. In fact, I have a married friend, and so people are saying, like, oh, I'm so lonely, I'm not married. And he said, oh, I used to be like that, and then I got married. You know what's a lot worse? Going to sleep next to someone every night who despises you. But they're married. It lasted. It didn't end, so that's a success. Rather, I think a lot of relationships have a warning date, like milk. It spoils. And to think that it's a failure because it doesn't work out just doesn't make sense to me. If there was a connection, it was a success. If you didn't make it last, why is that more valuable? I don't see that as more valuable. I see it just as legitimate to have small relationships or short term. It's, of course, the quality, it's the connection that counts. So anytime you can make a connection to someone, I consider that a success. Here's another short poem by Jack Gelbert. He ended up on a farm after all these relationships didn't work out. This one's depressing. This one reminds me of a lot of dismissive avoidance. He says, "Can you understand being alone so long? You'd go out in the middle of the night and put a bucket into the well so you could feel something down there tug at the other end of the rope." So you can picture him on the farm. He's so lonely. He hasn't even felt anything. So he goes out and puts the bucket in the well just so he can feel a tug, something at the other end. I knew a guy who was kind of a hermit. He couldn't have relationships. He had a difficult time. So he used to walk to the food store every day and just buy something. And he did that so when the cashier handed him a receipt, his hand would brush up against theirs. And just that human contact would keep him going another day. But it's that type of loneliness that can happen if we don't work out and we don't actually do what we need to do. This is the last one by Danny Antigua. She's actually still around, Danley. She's a poet, and she comes out with books all the time. Right now she's still giving readings. Antigua, it's called Diary Entry 31, Attachment Disorder. She says, "Maybe I'm not a mystery. I look for Father in everyone. Come home and hold me, I say to the exterminator of all life. I point to the earth where I'm told Duende lives. I point to the fog my shame has designed. It is thick and joyless, a soup of ghosts. I've been sad for too long. For too long, I've been the kid who needed someone else to buy her a meal at Bigford's. I order too much and apologize like I'm dragging a big truth from under the cement slab in the yard. My little dog finding the gopher, hiding in the dark, then whipping it in the air by the neck. Spin, girl, spin, they say, the men who don't love me. And the truth, I believe in hell, not heaven, because I only know how to perform a burden. To cling is to build an altar of collected things. This broken crayon, that dull knife, another stained shirt. I don't know too much about her, but to me, this is very much about attachment disorder. To her, it's a burden. People who are avoidant or dismissive, they see it as a burden. You're coming in on my time. I need all my energy for me, okay? Because none of my needs are going to get met. And so I have to meet them myself. And that is exhausting. And then you want something? You want me to give you something? And that's just, it's a burden. Relationships for these people are a burden because they don't ask for their needs. And a lot of times, they're not even in touch with it. I talk to them all the time. What are your needs? What would you want? What do you want? And they tell me, yeah, my girlfriend keeps asking, like, what can I do for you? What can I do for you? And I tell her nothing at all, They just will not ask for their needs to be met. But also, just in this poem, you can kind of talk about, you kind of see how she's still like a little girl, And I think she's talking about the broken crayon and someone else has to order her meals, I mean, this is clearly like a wounded child part. And so, yeah, 8-year-olds don't do relationships very well. And if that's the part that's coming out to save her and protect her, that relationship's probably going to be pretty hard, You have to soothe that wounded part. And I have a webinar on using parts work to do that. You kind of find the part, go back, and unburden it, kind of like an IFS thing. That's one way. You can have ideal parents come in and just soothe that part, listen what's going on, have its story told, soothe it as it never got soothed in childhood, but give it either yourself or have the ideal parents do it. If you don't, you're going to be 60 and there's still going to be this 8-year-old trying to have relationships. But anyway, I love poetry, and there's a lot of others. If you guys dig any other poems, let me know. And thanks for listening. Bye.